Welcome everyone to our Great Lakes Region webinar on beginning a handbell choir. My name is Ann Wood. I'm the president of the Great Lakes Region, and our other presenters today are Janet Langhorst, who is our connecting committee membership person, and David VanderMeer, who is the vice president of the Great Lakes Region, and Sandra McDonald, who is the treasurer. I think Janet's going to go first.
I will. Welcome everybody to our webinar for today. We're literally starting with the basics of beginning a handbell choir. And there are many possible scenarios that somebody can find themselves in with this situation. You could be a director with no experience, hired for a church job, and finding out that a handbell choir comes with it. And you might have an existing choir which is functional, but you have to stand up and direct them. Or you could have no choir at all, but there could be a mandate to start one. You could also be a director with experience, but, and this is the situation I was in, you've never started a group literally from square one. You've always come into a group that exists and is functioning on some level. So initial resources to look at, especially if you're not at all experienced, is the Handbell Musicians of America. And this is a guild, as it says on the screen there, divided into regional groups, offers all kinds of opportunities, meetings, conferences, quarterly journal, all kinds of things. There are many different categories of membership. The standard membership is $95 a year. And the link is right there. And by the way, there will be a resource list that will include all these resources you see on this PowerPoint that you can reference later on. Okay, next thing you need to know, especially if you're starting a handbell choir from scratch, is where do I get the stuff? Jeffers Handbell Supply sells everything but the handbells themselves, music, folders, gloves, all kinds of other stuff. They're at handbellworld.com. Now, just to let you know, we are not discussing anything about the purchase of handbells themselves. If you need information about this, please put your contact information in the chat and somebody will reach out to you. But that's an entirely separate subject and beyond the scope of today's webinar, so we're not going to get into that today. For PAM members, the lectionary aids volume of the call to worship does include handbell suggestions linked to the lectionary passages for each week. You see the most recent and an example of a place where it says handbell music. So you have all kinds of places to find out what to do once you've got your handbell choir started. Okay, the initial resources for you as a director would be another thing for the teaching pieces is there's a thing called the Learn to Ring. It's the first thing on your slide by Janet VanderMeer and Susan Berry. This is published through Lorenz and it has a whole series, but this particular book is specifically for the director. There's also a Times version of this as well. I think it's important to look at this if you have started a group from scratch. When I did, I was surprised, even though as an experienced teacher, the whole 9 yards, I was really surprised at some of the stuff they suggested that I would never have thought of. And I think it's just a good thing to take a look at and see what people suggest. Obviously, you adapt this to the group that you have. But the other thing is that sometimes it's just helpful to see what somebody else has to say. Also, other suggestions are the Handbell Helper by Martha Lynn Thompson, with lots of tips for the directors and the ringers, and for the people that might be teaching younger ringers. Carolyn Mathis has a really good resource about teaching younger ringers. And that's something you also have to think about with a group that has no experience. What are their ages? Do you have adults? Do you have youth? Do you have children? Size is going to matter when you start playing the bells. What are the physical capabilities your group has? Do they read? Do they not read? And for the people that read, do they read treble clef, bass clef, or either one? And even if it's a new group at your church, does anybody come to you with experience from someplace else? And these are all things that you need to assess before you actually begin picking up the bells. Reading is helpful, but it is not necessary. But the most important part is commit. Unlike a singing choir, where if you're missing one alto or bass or whatever, it probably doesn't tank your rehearsal. But if you're missing handbell people, there's one person per place. And if you're missing people, it impacts the entire group, which is another thing to consider when you're looking at starting a group. What's the level of commitment? And like I said, looking at these books to get an idea of how you teach it, not just how you direct it, because it's two different things, is really, really important. So here are some beginning resources for the ringers and the directors. The first two here involve a video component. You've got Successful Ringing Step by Step, video and books for the director and ringers, also available as computer-based instruction. And you have the Handbell Techniques by Michelle Sherrick, which is a DVD. We live in a visual society now, so seeing it is really going to be important, especially if this is something you can share with your groups that they could look at on their own or between rehearsals. Okay, what do you put in the folders to start with? One of the most important things are notebook position reference cards. You'll see them in the two pictures that you have. The right side's a little bit closer in to see the actual position cards. You notice it shows you what the bell's going to say and what it looks like on the staff. I think sometimes it's easier to do this if you haven't read things before. As a pianist, I kept trying to play everything. It was hard for me to figure out which two notes do I actually have to pay attention to. So this is a really good way to not ever have it away from you. This is what you're responsible for. And then the handbell and hand chime notation. This is a really valuable resource for a director because just like reading music any place, different things mean different things to a handbell choir that would mean something different with a pianist, an organist, a singer. And there's different little symbols you should be aware of. It's nice if there can be one of these in each folder, but it's definitely a good reference for the director. Okay. A few more things. Basic rhythms for bell choirs. This is very inexpensive. It doesn't cost any more than buying an actual piece. And this is something that absolutely could be in each folder. They can be used for warm-ups, for things. It's a really great resource. And like I said, it is inexpensive enough to put one in every folder. Then when you get to the point of actually starting with pieces, there's something called the Foundation Series, Michael Joy and Jason Krug, and it's GIA. And the great thing about this is each piece includes teaching tips, an etude to introduce the concept, and usually 2 pieces of repertoire. So you have your whole lesson plan right there to look at. And even if you played it and you bring it back a couple years later, you've got new ringers, it's another way to just go ahead and review, but it's all there in the same place. And along that same line, Tunes That Teach for 2 or 3 octave handbells by Martha Lynn Thompson, who we referred to earlier as one of the learning to ring things for the director. This is a series with several choices. Tunes That Teach, Tunes That Teach 2, classical tunes that teach, multicultural tunes that teach. There are hymn collections, all kinds of stuff. And the nice thing about this is these are for 2 or 3 octave handbells, which means it's very versatile without buying an entire set of music, one for 2 octaves and one for 3 octaves. So since so many of us do not have unlimited budgets, it's another way to be more frugal with the resources that you have and have something that's going to be much easier to use.
And reproducible, right, Jan?
Pardon? Yes, yes. The Tunes That Teach are reproducible. There are also other series that are reproducible, but they're a little outside the scope of this webinar and what we're doing now, but there's a great one with multicultural and they are reproducible. There's been more and more of this lately with not only choir music that are digital downloads, but also with bell music, which is another thing to be on the lookout for. All right, enough about the theoretical. Now we can get into the real, where Anne is going to actually show us what the basic ring techniques are. Over to you.
Hi. So I imagine that many of you that are watching this already know how to ring a handbell, but knowing how to teach how to ring a handbell is a little different. So what I'm going to begin with is very, very simple. How do you hold a handbell? It's, first of all, let's not call it a grip because we want it to be loose. The handbell is seated on your hand here with your hand up against the hand guard and the bell picture facing you. And the bell is rung in a circular motion, kind of like pedaling a bicycle backwards, this direction. One good way to get students to get that concept is scarves. That the scarf will continually stay in motion instead of flapping if they're punching their bells. But there are lots of visual ideas. You can give them the shape of a football, writing a letter D in the air, all of those things. So typically a ringer will have 2 handbells, 1 for each hand. I have 4 here, but we're not going to get there yet. So we have to do 2 basic things. We have to ring the bell. We have to stop the sound of the bell. So ringing and damping. So we're ringing this way. Damping is accomplished by touching the rim of the bell to the chest area or to the table. There are lots of places you can damp a handbell, but typically with beginning choirs, you would start with ringing and damping on the shoulder. The hardest part for most beginners is the idea that when I ring this bell, as I damp it, I should ring the other one. So exercises that require alternating hands are really good for you to work on with your beginners. Also, if you're going to switch to another bell, then you would like to table damp this bell. So if I'm going to ring this bell and I then have to play an accidental, I'm going to table damp it. So let's review. Nice loose grip with the handbell seated on your hand. These fingers are just kind of loosely around here. If you want to play quietly, you can just use your fingers to kind of squeeze, okay? So I believe that Dave has put up some exercises that you can use. These are very simple to do if you have any kind of skill with Finale or a music writing program, because let's remember that with standard assignments in a handbell choir, everyone is at a position where the left hand is holding a note that's notated in a space, and the right hand is holding a note that's notated on a line. When I told my handbell choir, some of whom have been playing for 30 years, well, your left hand's always in a space, this last week. And one of them said, really? I didn't know that. So when we do these one-line exercises, the idea is that the note in the space below the line is your left hand note. The note on the line is your right hand note. And Dave has cleverly arranged it also so that the notes below the line have the stems going down and the notes on the line have the stems going up, which is another clue in these exercises. Doesn't always apply to music, but in these exercises, it makes it easy to identify which hand should be playing. So I'm going to begin by demonstrating this first page of exercises. So here's the first line. I'm going to begin with my left hand. I'm playing 4 quarter notes with my left hand. Notice that when I have to play the bell again on the next beat, I don't need to stop the sound in between. But when I get to the end of that measure and the other bell has to take over, that has to be damped when I ring the other bell. So here's the first line. The second line is way more complicated than that, because I'm going to alternate hands in the first measure. So I would offer the idea that you might want to begin doing these very slowly. If you're teaching beginning ringers, don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, go 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the line beginning with measure 5. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, 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 right, 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 right. And the line beginning with measure 9 has even more complexity to it, because we have some repeated notes and some alternating notes. Still no rests, please notice. So I'm going to play the line that begins with measure 9. Right, left. So I think we have a couple more slides of these exercises. So let's get to the next slide and look at these, where we have some longer note values. And one of the things to remember to talk about with your ringers, and this applies even to people that have been ringing for years. I still have people in my bell choir that don't remember that a longer note requires a bigger circle than a shorter note. So the first line is, again, pretty simple. It's all quarter notes, not too much alternation between hands. So here's that line, right? The second line is a little trickier because we have some half notes. And again, you know, you can do these exercises at any speed. Once your ringers have become competent, you can play that first line going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I wouldn't do that with a beginner. So here's measure 5. And measure, the line beginning with measure 9 now has half notes and whole notes. And here's what my ringers do. They'll play a whole note and then they're hovering here for 3 beats because they haven't remembered that they need to keep the bell in motion. The reason, of course, for keeping the bell in motion is that it improves the sound quality from the bell. It makes the sound waves from the bell move around the room much more readily than they do if you just park it somewhere. Okay, so here's measure 9. Let's move on to the next slide. Oh no, we have rests. Okay, so what does a rest mean? When I ask my private music students this, they're like, well, it means don't play. Well, yes, but actually, I want them to think about it this way. A note is a symbol for sound that lasts a specified amount of time. A rest is a symbol for silence that lasts a specified amount of time. And as with many, many instruments, in order to create silence, we have to do something. So my piano students think that they're resting when their fingers are still sitting on the keys. I'm like, I can still hear the sound. And my bell ringers are the same way. I'm resting, I'm not doing anything. Oh, but I can still hear your bell. So make sure that those rests happen very specifically on the beats that they land on. So here's the first line on this page. The second line involves resting for 2 beats in each measure. So here's measure 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And measure 9 is a little trickier because the rests now are quarter rests. So here's measure 9. Whoa. I think we have one more slide of exercises that I'll show you.
I think that's it.
Is that
Oh,
it?
no, oh, no, there's one more. You're
Oh, I
right.
thought there was. I thought we had 4 of them.
Thank you.
Okay, this one's a little trickier because now the rests are not consistently in the same place all the time. So here we go. Left, 2, rest, 4, right, 2, rest, 4, left, 2, rest, 4, right, 2, rest, 4. Here's the line beginning with measure 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And the measure beginning, or the line beginning with measure 9. These are really excellent exercises. There are books available of these. You'll find these in many different publications. And I think some of those are listed on the resource sheet that we have for you that you'll all be able to access at the end of this webinar. But it's really easy to do these yourself. If you have any kind of a music writing program on your computer, you could certainly even do this by hand if you needed to. So these are excellent exercises. They help ringers to isolate the skills that are necessary to play a handbell. The other thing I think that's important about these single line exercises like this is that it takes out what Janet was talking about. Only look at the notes that you're going to play here. And these would apply to anyone because everyone is in a position, if you're playing with standard assignments, where your left hand bell is in a space, your right hand bell is on a line. The hardest thing, I think, for beginning ringers is to get rhythms right. If you understand that playing a handbell is all about rhythm, because after all, these are percussion instruments. And percussion is always about rhythm. That making these exercises something that you do regularly with your bell choir, especially when they're beginning, is a good thing to do. I think that's what I have for you today. Sandra, are there any questions or any?
I do not see anything in the chat, but we would encourage anyone with questions to put their question in the chat, and we will be happy to do the best we can to respond to you. And I'm sitting watching the chat with my full attention right now.
Okay. Dave, you have the resource sheet that will be made available to them. Are you going to post that in the chat or?
I think that we'll have it up on the PAM website.
It'll be on the website. Okay. So this webinar will be available on the Great Lakes Region PAM website as soon as it gets processed and put up there so that you can go back and review it. We have a series of these webinars on handbells planned. Dave, would you like to tell us a little bit about the next one? We don't have a date yet, but this is what's coming up next.
Right. Thanks to Kathleen Evelyn Shaw from Malmark. She will be doing handbell maintenance for Malmark handbells, and then I will share handbell maintenance for Schumer handbells. So we will both share how to do handbell maintenance with both Schumer and Malmark bells.
Which is something that I wish someone had made available to me when I began directing handbells, because I had no clue what I was doing. We'd like to know what would be useful to you in our handbell webinar series. So if you have suggestions or questions that we could try to address, please post those in the chat as well.
I am still seeing no questions in the chat. So
Here's one.
Glad we're doing a webinar on maintenance.
And then also one of the other series will be on rhythm. And already talked about rhythm, but we'll have a seminar all about rhythm exercises that you can use with your handbell choirs, from young children, youth, through adults.
all right, I'm still looking for any other comments, and on the last slide of the PowerPoint, you also could see everybody's email, and I believe that's on the resource sheet too. So I just want to encourage anyone with questions to contact any of the three presenters today, and I think we all would be happy to help in any way we can.
Absolutely.
Is that showing?
Yes, it is. Thank you, David.
Yes.
And I'm going to reiterate what Ann said very nicely already. We would welcome questions, but we would also welcome ideas and suggestions for any other way that we could be helpful. Actually, not only in regard to handbells, but on any topic that any of our—
Absolutely. Any musical topic. This is the second webinar that we've done relating to handbells, but we've certainly done others about other topics in music and as church musicians. So please feel free to contact any of us. This basically is the board of the PAM Great Lakes region that you see here before you right now. And if you have anything that we can help you with, questions, suggestions, needing help with something, we're here for you, and we encourage you to contact us. Okay, Dave and Sandra are in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm in the Upper Peninsula in Escanaba, and Janet is in the Cincinnati area. But we can reach out to people that are close to you because we know a lot of them. So if you have things that you need help with, that we can help you with, we're happy to do that. Maybe we can connect you with someone closer to you that could do the same thing for you. So we're looking, we want to be here for you. That's why we're doing this. So.
The only other thing I would do is a little commercial for the Pam Montreat Worship and Music Conference. And there's a great handbell director this year. So if you're particularly interested in handbells, this would be a wonderful year to attend. And you can get all the information about that on the Pam website. And all of us will be there also. And we will have a region, Great Lakes region gathering, actually both weeks. And we would love to meet you, just to put a face with the name of the various people who participated in not only this webinar, but some of the others. So take a look at the Pam website and consider the Pam Worship and Music Conference.
Yes, I think the handbell directors this year are Brian Childers and Sandra Ethan, both of whom are really excellent.
And also on the Pam website, there is a regional page for each one of us. So all of our contact information is also there if you need it. There's a tab in the Pam website that says regions, and we're the Great Lakes region. So you can always reach out to us that way as well.
By the way, the Great Lakes region basically is the places surrounding the Great Lakes. Oh, someone says that they would like in a future webinar to demonstrate special handbell techniques and their symbols. That's actually on our planned list of things to do. So look for the announcement of when that will be coming. We're doing the maintenance next, and then I think we'll probably get to the techniques right after that. So thank you.
And also, Stephanie, for the moment, the one resource in the resource list that says handbell and hand chime notation that comes from AGEHR, that is a really great, it's almost like a little dictionary to look it up for you as the director.
And you want to make sure that you've got the most recent edition of that, because every few years, the Handbell Guild has a little conference where they decide how they're going to mark things, because handbells are a relatively young instrument compared to, say, you know, orchestral strings or keyboard instruments, that sort of thing. So it's constantly evolving. We, you know, a few years ago, someone decided that, you know, those singing bowls that they use in Eastern philosophy, couldn't we do that with a handbell? We can do that with a handbell. And all of a sudden, everybody's writing pieces with singing bells, and everybody's going, how do I do that? And what's that going to look like in my music? So if you have an old edition of the AGEHR notation guide, you might want to secure a brand new one, because they keep revising things.
And sometimes I've also found in some of the more teaching types of pieces, in the inside front cover, or maybe on the back, they will lay out whatever techniques are asked for in that particular piece, but that is not a consistent practice. So having some kind of reference is always helpful.
That's one of the things that's really great about that Foundations series from GIA, though, by Mike Joy and Jason Krug, because Mike has deliberately written little etudes that go with these pieces so that everyone in the choir practices the technique that's going to be used in the piece. There's also a book, I've forgotten the name of it. And it's Mike Joy and Sandy Ethan, that addresses things like techniques and rhythms. And I can't remember the name of the series. I'll find it and get it to you, because it follows the same kind of pattern. It says, here's the technique, here's how you do it. Here's a piece that really just uses that technique along with regular standard ringing.
We can add that to the resource list then.
Yes.
Yeah, we could before it's actually put up with.
Yeah,
the-
I'll find it because I have it in my files and I didn't think to add it to the list.
Well, I think we have given everybody the opportunity to ask questions, and we really appreciate the suggestions. I think
Absolutely.
we are probably ready to wrap up. Stay tuned for the handbell maintenance presentation, and then one on techniques. And we really appreciate you all joining us today.
Absolutely. Many thanks to you.
Much.
Have a good day.